When kindergarten teacher Brielle discovers her seemingly humble blind date is a powerful tech CEO, trust shatters. But will a bold act of love change everything? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching. From today, Brielle Carter stared at her reflection in the mirror and let out a frustrated sigh. Her younger sister, Tasha, had spent the last hour helping her get ready for this blind date she never wanted to go on in the first place. "I still don't understand why I'm doing this," Brielle said, adjusting the simple gold hoop earrings that complemented her dark skin. Tasha rolled her eyes. "Because you haven't been on a date in over a year, and you promised Mom you'd try to get out more." "Dating is overrated," Brielle muttered, though she had to admit the yellow dress Tasha had picked out did look good on her. "Men see what they want to see, not who you really are." "Not all men are like Jason," Tasha reminded her, referencing Brielle's ex, who had wanted her to quit her job as a kindergarten teacher so she could attend his work functions. "Mom raised us to be strong, independent women. You know your worth." Brielle thought about their mother, Evelyn, who had raised 2 daughters on her own after their father walked out. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep them fed and housed, all while warning her daughters about men who would try to dim their light. Fine, 1 date. But when this Daniel guy turns out to be another disappointment, I'm taking a year off from dating. "Deal," Tasha said with a confident smile. "My co-worker says he's different. No ego, really listens when people talk." "We'll see," Brielle replied, grabbing her purse. "Don't wait up." Blue Note Jazz Lounge was exactly the kind of place Brielle loved, intimate, with soft lighting and the warm tones of a saxophone filling the air. She'd arrived 10 minutes early, a habit she couldn't break, and asked for a table for 2. "I'm meeting someone," she told the hostess. "Daniel Cross." The hostess nodded. "He's already here, actually. Right this way." Brielle's eyebrows shot up in surprise. A man who arrived early for a date? That was new. As she followed the hostess through the dimly lit lounge, Brielle spotted him. A tall man with warm brown skin and a neatly trimmed beard, dressed in a simple navy button-down shirt. Nothing flashy or attention-seeking about him. When he saw her approaching, he stood up, his eyes lighting up with a genuine smile. "Brielle?" he asked, his voice deep and pleasantly rich. "Yes, Daniel." He nodded and extended his hand. "It's nice to meet you. Tasha's told me a lot about you." His handshake was firm but not aggressive, and Brielle noticed he had calluses on his palms. A working man, she thought with approval. "All good things, I hope," she said, sliding into her seat. "She said you're brilliant, hard-working, and that you have no patience for nonsense," Daniel replied with a chuckle. "She made you sound intimidating, actually." Brielle laughed despite herself. "That sounds like Tasha. She thinks I'm too serious." "Are you?" Daniel asked, genuine curiosity in his eyes. "I'm realistic," Brielle said carefully. "Life's taught me not to get carried away with fantasies." Daniel nodded slowly. "I can respect that." A waiter appeared to take their drink orders. Daniel asked for a simple whiskey on the rocks, while Brielle ordered a glass of red wine. "So," Brielle began, determined to get the awkward first date questions out of the way, "what do you do for work?" Daniel's expression shifted slightly. He shrugged. "It's complicated. Business consulting mainly. Nothing exciting." He quickly changed the subject. "Tasha mentioned you're a kindergarten teacher." Normally, Brielle would have pressed for details, but something in his manner made her hold back. Besides, she loved talking about her students. 5 years now," she said, her face softening. "It's chaotic and exhausting, but there's nothing like watching a child's face when they finally learn to read their first word." "I bet you're amazing at it," Daniel said. "It takes a special kind of patience." "What makes you say that?" "The way you carry yourself. Confident, but gentle. Kids need that stability." Brielle felt her guard slip, just a little. Most men she dated wanted to talk about themselves, not listen to her stories about finger painting and alphabet songs. Their drinks arrived, and the conversation flowed more easily than Brielle had expected. Daniel asked thoughtful questions about her childhood, her favorite books and her dreams. He laughed easily and leaned forward when she spoke, as if every word mattered. When the band started playing Summertime, Daniel's eyes lit up. "This was my grandmother's favorite," he said softly. "She used to play Ella Fitzgerald records on..." Sunday mornings while she made breakfast. My mom loves Ella too, Brielle said, surprised by the connection. She'd clean the house on Saturdays with jazz playing. Said it made the work feel lighter. Daniel's smile was warm, reaching all the way to his eyes. Sounds like a wise woman. She is, Brielle agreed. Raised my sister and me on her own after. My dad left, worked as a nurse during the day and waitressed at night to keep us fed. That couldn't have been easy, Daniel said, his expression serious. My mum was a single parent too for a while. It's a special kind of strength. Brielle studied him over the rim of her wine glass. Most men got uncomfortable when she mentioned her absent father. They'd change the subject or offer empty platitudes. Daniel just listened. What about your family, she asked. Pretty simple story. Mom worked at a department store, Dad was a mechanic. They divorced when I was 12, but both stayed involved in my life. I got lucky that way. His voice held no pretense, just honest reflection. As the evening progressed, they ordered appetizers to share. Daniel didn't try to impress her by ordering the most expensive items or showing off wine knowledge. Instead, he asked what she liked and deferred to her choices. Tell me something most people don't know about you, Daniel said as they shared a plate of spinach dip. Brielle thought for a moment. I wanted to be a dancer when I was little, ballet specifically. My mom saved for months to buy me proper shoes, but we couldn't afford the lessons. She surprised herself with the admission. I still dance around my apartment when no one's watching. I'd like to see that someday, Daniel said, then quickly added, Sorry, that was presumptuous. Brielle felt a blush warm her cheeks. Your turn. Tell me something about you. Daniel hesitated. I sleep with the window open even in winter. Can't stand feeling closed in. He looked almost embarrassed by the confession. Drives my roommate crazy. You have a roommate? Brielle asked, surprised. My best friend from college, Sam. We share a place. He glanced at his watch. I didn't realize how late it's gotten. Do you need to head home soon? Brielle was surprised to find she didn't want the evening to end. I'm in no rush, she admitted. Daniel's smile was worth the admission. How about we take a walk? There's a nice path along the river a couple blocks from here. The night air was crisp, stars surprisingly visible despite the city lights. Daniel walked beside Brielle, close but not touching, respecting her space. This is my favorite time of night, Brielle said, when the city gets quiet, but it's not quite asleep. I know what you mean, Daniel replied. Like you're sharing a secret with the world. They strolled along the riverfront, their conversation shifting from childhood memories to favorite movies to dreams for the future. Daniel talked about wanting to make a difference, to create something meaningful. Not just for money, he explained, but something that helps people. That's refreshing, Brielle said. Most guys I've dated measure success by their salary or the car they drive. And what do you measure it by? Daniel asked. Impact, Brielle said without hesitation. Whether you've made someone's life better by being in it. Daniel stopped walking and turned to look at her. In the soft glow of the streetlights, his eyes were intense. I think that's beautiful. Something shifted between them, a moment of recognition. Brielle felt her carefully constructed walls trembling. As they reached a bench overlooking the water, Daniel asked, Would you like to sit for a while? They sat close together, watching the moonlight dance on the river's surface. The silence between them felt comfortable, not awkward. Can I ask you something personal? Daniel said finally. Brielle nodded, curious. Why did you agree to this blind date? You don't strike me as someone who does things just because her sister suggests it. Brielle laughed softly. Honestly? I lost a bet. Tasha said if the Knicks won their last game, I had to go on this date. Daniel's laugh was rich and genuine. I'm benefiting from basketball now. That's a first. Your turn, Brielle challenged. Why did you agree? Daniel was quiet for a moment. I've been focused on work for a long time. My friend Sam said I needed to remember there's more to life. He looked at her. I'm glad I listened. The intensity in his gaze made Brielle's heart skip. She'd promised herself she wouldn't rush into anything, wouldn't let herself be swept away. But something about Daniel felt different, grounded, real. When he walked her to her car later that night, he didn't try to kiss her, just squeezed her hand gently. "I'd really like to see you again, Brielle," he said simply. "I'd like that too," she admitted. The following Saturday, they met for coffee at a small neighborhood bakery. Brielle was surprised to find Daniel already at a table, reading a dog-eared paperback. "The Alchemist?" she asked, recognizing the cover as she approached. Daniel looked up, his face brightening at the sight of her. "My grandmother gave it to me. I've read it at least a dozen times." "It's about following your destiny," Brielle said, sliding into the seat across from him. "And recognizing it when it's right in front of you," Daniel added, his eyes holding hers. For a moment longer than necessary, their coffee date stretched into lunch and then a walk through the local farmers market. Daniel bought them fresh strawberries to share, and Brielle found herself telling him about her students, the funny things they said, the problems they faced. "This one little boy, Marcus, he's brilliant, but so shy," she explained as they strolled past vegetable stands. "His mom works nights, so he's always exhausted. I've been staying late to help him with reading." "That's above and beyond," Daniel said, admiration in his voice. "It's what he needs," Brielle said simply. "Some of these kids, school is the only stable place in their lives." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "My third-grade teacher was like you," he said finally. "Mrs. Jackson. She noticed I was struggling with math and stayed after school twice a week to help me. Changed my whole life." "How so?" Brielle asked. "She made me believe I could learn anything if I put in the work, that I wasn't limited by where I came from." His expression was thoughtful. "I wouldn't be where I am today without her." "And where is that exactly?" Brielle asked, suddenly realizing how vague Daniel remained about his work. A shadow crossed his face. "Just a good place, a lucky place." He changed the subject. "Tell me more about your mum. She sounds remarkable." Brielle wanted to press him, but something held her back. Everyone had their reasons for privacy. Besides, she enjoyed talking about Evelyn. "Mom's the strongest person I know," she said, letting the question of Daniel's work slide. "She taught us that a woman's worth isn't tied to having a man, that we should never make ourselves smaller to make someone else feel bigger." "Wise advice," Daniel said. "My mom said something similar after the divorce. Said she'd rather be alone than be with someone who didn't value her." "Are they still in touch, your parents?" Daniel nodded. "Birthdays, holidays, they figured out how to be friends after the marriage ended. I was lucky that way." "Very lucky," Brielle agreed, thinking of her own father who had disappeared from their lives completely. As evening approached, Daniel asked if she'd like to get dinner. "I know a little Italian place around the corner," he suggested. "Nothing fancy, but the pasta is amazing." The restaurant was indeed small and unassuming, with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. The owner greeted Daniel by name and led them to a corner table. "You come here often?" Brielle asked after they'd ordered. "It's close to where I work sometimes," Daniel said. "Found it by accident one night when I was working late." Again, that vagueness about his job. Brielle frowned slightly. "Is something wrong?" Daniel asked, noticing her expression. "I was just wondering why you're so mysterious about your work," Brielle said directly. Daniel sighed. "It's not mysterious, just complicated. And honestly," he met her eyes, "I like that when we're together we talk about real things, not what I do for a living." Brielle could understand that. How many dates had she endured where men talked endlessly about their careers, their ambitions, their importance? "Fair enough," she said. "But eventually you know I'm going to get curious." Daniel smiled, relief visible on his face. "Eventually," he agreed. "But for tonight, can we just be two people enjoying a meal together?" The way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, made it easy to say yes. Over the next 3 weeks, Brielle and Daniel fell into a comfortable rhythm. They texted throughout the day. He always seemed to know when she needed encouragement after a tough day at school. They met for dinner twice a week, took long walks on weekends, and slowly, Brielle felt the protective walls around her heart beginning to crumble. One evening, as they sat on her couch watching old movies, Daniel's phone kept buzzing with messages. "Sorry," he said, checking it with a frown. "Work emergency. I might need to step out and make a call." "On a Saturday night?" Brielle asked, eyebrows raised. "The joys of being on call," he said with a rueful smile. "I won't be long. While Daniel stepped onto her small balcony to make his call, Brielle couldn't help but wonder what kind of consulting required emergency calls at 9 on a weekend. But when he returned, the way he pulled her close and kissed her forehead made her concerns melt away. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Nothing that can't wait until Monday," he said, his attention fully on her again. "This is more important. No man had ever made her feel like she came first. Not her father, who had walked away without a backward glance. Not Jason, who had expected her to orbit around his needs. But Daniel looked at her like she was essential, not optional." Later that night, as they said goodbye at her door, Daniel held both her hands in his. "Brielle," he said softly, "I need you to know something." Her heart quickened. "What is it?" "These past few weeks with you. They've been the most real weeks of my life in a long time." His eyes were serious, vulnerable. "I'm falling for you, and it scares me a little." Brielle felt her breath catch. "It scares me too," she admitted. "I don't let people in easily." "I know," he said. "That's what makes it so special that you're letting me in." When he kissed her, gentle and unhurried, Brielle knew she was in dangerous territory. She was falling in love with Daniel Cross, a man who still held parts of himself in shadow. But as his arms wrapped around her, strong and secure, she decided that some risks were worth taking. The following Thursday, Brielle stopped at Jasmine's bakery to pick up pastries before meeting Daniel for their morning coffee date. As she waited in line, a magazine rack near the counter caught her eye. Specifically, the bold headline on the cover of Business Today, "Daniel Cross, the tech visionary of the decade." Time seemed to stop as Brielle stared at the photo on the cover. It was unmistakably her Daniel, the same warm eyes, the same gentle smile, but dressed in an expensive suit, standing in front of a sleek glass building with Cross Innovations emblazoned on the facade. "Miss, it's your turn to order," the cashier said, breaking through her shock. Brielle moved forward mechanically, ordering the almond croissants Daniel loved without really hearing herself speak. Her mind was spinning. Daniel Cross, CEO, Millionaire. The article's subtitle proclaimed he had revolutionized accessible technology and built a billion-dollar empire from scratch. The man who claimed to have a roommate, who never talked about his job, who paid for their dates with cash, not flashy credit cards. The man she was falling in love with had been lying to her all along. As Brielle clutched the bakery bag in trembling, hands her mother's warnings echoed in her mind. Powerful men will tell you anything to get what they want, and once they have it, you become just another possession. She thought of all the times Daniel had vaguely mentioned work, of the late-night emergency calls, of how the restaurant owner had known him by name. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the deception. With her heart pounding painfully, in her chest, Brielle pulled out her phone and stared at Daniel's last text. "Can't wait to see you this morning. You make every day better." She typed her response with shaking fingers. "Something came up. Can't make it today." Then she turned and walked out of the bakery, leaving behind both the magazine and her illusions about Daniel Cross. The trust was broken. And Brielle Carter did not give second chances. Daniel checked his watch for the third time. Brielle was never late. In fact, she was usually 5 minutes early for everything. He'd been waiting at their usual coffee shop for almost 30 minutes, a cold cup of coffee sitting untouched in front of him. He tried calling her again, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Brielle, it's me again. I'm getting worried. Please call me back and let me know you're okay." As he hung up, an uneasy feeling settled in his stomach. Her text had been abrupt, unlike her usual warm messages. Something was wrong. The barista approached his table. "Another coffee, Mr. Cross?" Daniel shook his head, then froze. The barista had never called him by his last name before. He always made a point of introducing himself as just Daniel. "Do I know you?" he asked carefully. The young woman blushed. "No, sir, I recognized you from the magazine cover. My boyfriend works in tech and has the new issue of Business Today. Said you're some kind of genius." Daniel's heart sank. So that was it. The carefully constructed world where he was just Daniel, not CEO Daniel Cross, not tech visionary Daniel Cross, just a man trying to connect with a woman who saw him for who he really was, had collapsed. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I'll take the check." Brielle sat on her couch, knees pulled up to her chest, staring at her silent phone. Daniel had called 7 times and left 3 messages. She couldn't bring herself to listen to them. The doorbell rang, making her jump. For a moment she feared Daniel had somehow found her address, but when she peeked through the peephole she saw her sister's familiar face. "What are you doing here?" Brielle asked as she opened the door. Tasha strode in, concern written across her features. "Daniel called me. He's worried sick about you. Said you were supposed to meet this morning but never showed up." "He called you?" Brielle asked, irritation rising. "How does he even have your number?" "I gave it to him after I set you up," Tasha said, studying her sister's face. "Bri, what happened? You look like you've been crying." "Did you know?" Brielle demanded, her voice tight with hurt. "Did you know who he really is?" Tasha's confused expression seemed genuine. "What are you talking about?" "Daniel Cross, CEO of Cross Innovations. The tech visionary of the decade," Brielle quoted bitterly. "Ring any bells?" Tasha's eyes widened. "What? No way. Daniel's just a guy who works with my friend Sam." "Sam? His roommate, I'm guessing," Brielle said, making air quotes. "Probably. His executive assistant or something." "Sam's a software engineer," Tasha said slowly. "I had no idea." "Wait, are you sure we're talking about the same person?" Brielle grabbed her phone and pulled up a news article with Daniel's photo. "That's him, right?" Tasha stared at the screen. "That's definitely him. But Bri, I swear I didn't know. Sam never mentioned anything about Daniel being rich or famous." Brielle sank onto the couch. "He lied to me, Tash, for weeks. He pretended to be some regular guy with a roommate and a consulting job." "Did he actually lie?" Tasha asked carefully. "Or did he just not tell you everything?" "A lie of omission." "Tay is still a lie," Brielle snapped. "He knew exactly what he was doing. Men like that, rich, powerful men, they play games. They create little fantasies to get what they want." Tasha sat beside her sister. "What did he want, though? You guys haven't even—" She paused delicately. "You know." "It doesn't matter," Brielle said firmly. "I can't trust him. And without trust, there's nothing." "Maybe you should at least hear him out," Tasha suggested. He seemed genuinely worried. "Of course he did. His little game got interrupted." Brielle wiped away a stray tear. "Just like Dad with his other family. Just like Jason and his 'we're meant to be together, but you need to change everything about yourself' nonsense." Tasha sighed. "Not every man is Dad or Jason. Maybe Daniel had a good reason. There's no good reason for lying." "At least talk to him," Tasha persisted. "If you're going to end it, do it to his face. You'll always wonder otherwise." Brielle knew. Her sister was right. But the thought of facing Daniel made her stomach knot with anxiety. "I'll think about it." "That's all I'm asking," Tasha said, giving her a hug. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I really thought he was a good guy." "So did I," Brielle whispered. "That's what hurts the most." Daniel paced the length of his penthouse. Office, phone in hand, Sam watched from the doorway, concern on his face. "She still won't answer?" Sam asked. "No," Daniel said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I've tried everything. Called, texted, even sent an email." "Maybe she needs space," Sam suggested. Finding out about all this must have been a shock. Daniel gestured around the luxurious office that occupied the top floor of the Cross Innovations headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. Modern art adorned the walls, and a sleek glass desk held 3 computer monitors. "I was going to tell her," Daniel said. "I just needed to be sure first." "Sure of what?" Sam asked. "That she was different, that she saw me, not my bank account." Daniel's voice was heavy with regret. "Do you know how rare that is? To have someone look at you and see just you?" "I get it," Sam said. "But from her perspective, I know how it looks," Daniel interrupted. "Like I was playing some kind of game, but I wasn't, Sam. For the first time since Vanessa, I felt like myself with someone." The mention of Vanessa made Sam wince. Daniel's ex-fiancée had been a social media influencer who had publicly humiliated him when she admitted in an interview that she was only with him for his money and status. The tabloids had feasted on the scandal for months. "Have you considered?" Giving Brielle some proof that you were planning to come clean? Sam asked. Daniel stopped pacing. What do you mean? The charity gala next week. You were going to invite her, right? That would have made your relationship public. I was going to ask her after our coffee date, Daniel said. I had it all planned out. Sam nodded thoughtfully. Send her the invitation, with a note explaining everything. If she shows up, you'll know she's at least willing to hear you out, and if she doesn't, then at least you tried, Sam said gently. A knock at the door interrupted them. Margaret, Daniel's executive assistant, entered with a tablet in hand. Mr. Cross, the board members are waiting in the conference room. Ms. Winters asked me to remind you this meeting has been on the calendar for weeks. Daniel sighed. Victoria Winters, the company's PR director, had been pushing for this meeting for days. Something about image management and public perception strategies. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes, he told Margaret. After she left, Daniel turned to Sam. I need to fix this. One thing at a time, Sam advised. Deal with the board. Then figure out how to win back your kindergarten teacher. The Cross Innovations conference room buzzed with tension as Daniel entered. 8 board members sat around the polished table, with Victoria Winters standing at the head, a presentation ready on the large screen. Nice of you to join us, Daniel, Victoria said, her tone professional but with an edge. At 45, she was one of the few women in the tech industry with her level of influence, and she guarded her position fiercely. We have concerns about the company's public image. What? Concerns? Daniel asked, taking his seat at the head of the table. Victoria clicked to her first slide, showing a photo of Daniel from 3 years ago, arm in arm with his ex-fiancée Vanessa at a red carpet event. Since your unfortunate personal situation, you've become something of a recluse. I've been focused on running the company, Daniel said stiffly, and the company has thrived. Richard Davenport, the oldest board member, interjected. But public perception matters, especially with the IPO coming up next quarter. Victoria nodded. Investors want stability. They want to see a CEO who is confident, established, and yes, personally settled. My personal life is not up for discussion, Daniel said firmly. Ordinarily, I'd agree, Victoria said, but with the new charitable foundation launching and the gala next week, we need to present a united, strong front. The media will be watching. I'll be there, Daniel said. I'll give my speech about the foundation. What more do you want? Victoria exchanged glances with the board members. We think you should bring a date, someone polished with the right connections. I've taken the liberty of making a list of suitable candidates. She slid a folder across the table. Daniel didn't touch it. I don't need your help finding a date, Victoria. With all due respect, she persisted, your last choice in companion cost the company millions in negative publicity. We can't afford another Vanessa situation. Daniel felt anger rising in his chest. Vanessa was a mistake. I know that better than anyone. But I will not parade around with some board-approved woman just to make investors feel comfortable. B. Reasonable, Daniel, Richard said. Victoria is only thinking of the company's best interests. Actually, Daniel said slowly, I was planning to bring someone to the gala. Someone important to me. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Oh, and who might that be? Her name is Brielle Carter, Daniel said. She's a kindergarten teacher. The silence that followed was deafening. A kindergarten teacher, Victoria repeated flatly. With no connections, no social media presence, no relevance to our investors or the tech community. She's real, Daniel said simply, and that's more valuable than any connection. Victoria's laugh was sharp. Daniel, be serious. This gala will have every major tech journalist and investor in attendance. It's not a place for educational hobbyists. Daniel stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. That educational hobbyist has more integrity and intelligence than half the people in this room, and this meeting is over. As he walked out, he heard Richard call after him, Daniel, don't be hasty. Victoria is just doing her job. But Daniel was already gone, his mind made up. He would send Brielle the invitation, along with the whole truth, and if she chose not to come, he would face the gala and the future alone. Brielle was grading papers at her kitchen table when there was a knock at her door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and after 3 days of ignoring Daniel's calls and messages, she felt a flutter of apprehension. Through the peephole, she saw a courier in a uniform holding a small envelope. "Delivery for Brielle Carter," the young man said when she opened the door. "That's me," she said, accepting the envelope. After the courier left, Brielle examined the cream-colored envelope. Her name was written on the front in elegant handwriting she recognized as Daniels. No return address, no company logo, just her name. For a long moment she considered throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won out. Inside was a single card, an invitation to the Cross Innovations Foundation launch gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel, along with a handwritten note, "Brielle, I know you have every reason to doubt me right now. I should have told you the truth from the beginning, but the time I spent with you was the most honest I've been with anyone in years, not because I was hiding my job, but because I was finally able to just be myself. No pretenses, no expectations, just me. The man who loves jazz and keeps his windows open at night and is falling in love with a kindergarten teacher who sees the world with more clarity than anyone I've ever known. I understand if you never want to see me again. But if there's any part of you that believes what we had was real, please come to the gala. No titles, no labels. Just us if you still want us. I'll be waiting. Daniel." Brielle sat down heavily on her couch, the invitation trembling in her hands. The sincerity in his words made her heart ache, but trust once broken wasn't easily repaired. Her phone rang and she saw her mother's name on the screen. "Hi, Mum," she answered, trying to sound normal. "Don't hi Mum me," Evelyn Carter said firmly. "Tasha told me what happened. Are you okay?" Brielle sighed. Of course Tasha had told their mother. "I'm fine, just feeling stupid." "You're many things. Brielle Marie Carter, but stupid isn't one of them," Evelyn said. "Tell me everything." So Brielle did, about the blind date, the weeks of getting to know Daniel, falling for his seeming normalcy and groundedness, and then the shock of discovering who he really was. "And now he sent me an invitation to some fancy gala," she finished, "with a note saying he's falling in love with me." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "What does your heart tell you?" "My heart?" Brielle laughed without humor. "My heart is the last thing I should listen to right now. It's what got me into this mess." "Your heart isn't what makes decisions," Evelyn said. "It's what tells you what matters most. Your head makes the decisions." "And what decision should I make?" Brielle asked, suddenly feeling like a little girl, again seeking her mother's wisdom. "I can't tell you that," Evelyn said, "but I will tell you something I've learned in my 52 years on this earth. Sometimes we build walls so high, we trap ourselves inside." "What's that supposed to mean?" Brielle asked. "It means," Evelyn said patiently, "that being careful about who you let in is wise, but being so afraid of getting hurt that you shut out any possibility of happiness, that's just another kind of pain." "So you think I should forgive him, just like that?" "I didn't say that," Evelyn corrected. "I think you should ask yourself what you're really afraid of. Is it that he lied? Or is it that he's rich and powerful, and that reminds you of all the warnings I gave you growing up?" Brielle was silent, considering her mother's words. "Because if it's the second reason," Evelyn continued, "then I need to apologize to you. I was trying to protect you from men like your father, men who use their power to control and manipulate. But I never meant for you to close yourself off to love just because a man has money." "It's not about the money," Brielle insisted. "It's about the deception." "Then tell him that," Evelyn said. "Make him understand why his actions hurt you, but don't throw away something that could be wonderful just because you're scared." After hanging up, Brielle reread Daniel's note. The gala was in 3 days. 3 days to decide whether to give him a chance to explain or to walk away for good. Daniel stood in his office, staring out at the city lights. It was past midnight, but sleep eluded him. The gala was tomorrow, and he hadn't heard a word from Brielle. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Final preparations complete for tomorrow. Press list confirmed. Your speech is on the teleprompter. Still waiting to hear about your +1." He didn't bother responding. Victoria had made her disapproval clear when he'd refused to consider any of her suitable candidates for a date to the gala. "You're making a mistake," she'd warned that afternoon. Coming alone will spark rumors. The focus should be on the foundation, not your love life, or lack thereof. "I'll handle it," had been his curt response. A knock on his office door pulled him from his thoughts. Sam entered, looking concerned. "You're still here," Sam observed. "It's late, man." "Just finalizing some things for tomorrow," Daniel said, though they both knew it was a lie. Sam approached the window, standing beside his friend. "She hasn't reached out?" "No," Daniel admitted, the single word heavy with disappointment. "I'm sorry," Sam said. "I really thought she might give you a chance to explain." Daniel shrugged, trying to appear less devastated than he felt. "Maybe it's better this way, clean break." "Is that what you want?" Sam asked skeptically. "Of course not," Daniel said, turning away from the window. "What I want is to go back 3 weeks and tell her the truth from the beginning. What I want is for her to know that every moment we spent together was real, the only real thing in my life for a long time." "Then tell her that," Sam urged. "Go to her apartment. Make her listen." Daniel shook his head. "I can't force her to hear me out. She has to want to listen." He picked up a small velvet box from his desk. "I bought this yesterday. Ridiculous, right?" Sam took the box and opened it to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a small ballet slipper. "Charm. The dancing thing she told you about?" Daniel nodded. "She said she wanted to be a ballet dancer when she was little, but her family couldn't afford lessons." He took the box back and snapped it shut. I don't know what I thought. That's not a man playing games," Sam said firmly. "That's a man in love." "Doesn't matter now," Daniel said, slipping the box into his desk drawer. "I have a gala to host tomorrow, a foundation to launch, and a company to run. Life goes on." But as Sam left and Daniel returned his gaze to the city lights, he wondered if life without Brielle would feel like living at all. The night of the gala arrived. Brielle stood in her bedroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The emerald green dress she'd borrowed from Tasha fit perfectly, highlighting her curves and complementing her dark skin. "You look amazing," Tasha said from the doorway. "But you still haven't decided if you're going, have you?" Brielle shook her head. "I don't know if I can face him or that world." "What are you afraid of?" Tasha asked, echoing their mother's question from days earlier. "Everything," Brielle admitted. "That he's not who I thought he was, that I'll look ridiculous in a room full of rich, powerful people, that I'll forgive him too easily and end." Up hurt again, Tasha stepped into the room and placed her hands on her sister's shoulders. "The Brielle I know isn't afraid of a room full of strangers, no matter how rich they are, and she definitely isn't afraid to speak her mind to a man who's wronged her." "This is different," Brielle said softly. "Because you're in love with him," Tasha stated simply. Brielle didn't deny it. The realization had been growing in her heart for days. Despite the hurt and anger, despite the broken trust, she missed Daniel with an ache that wouldn't subside. "If I go," she said slowly, "it doesn't mean I forgive him, it just means I'm willing to listen. That's all anyone can ask," Tasha said, squeezing her shoulders. "And hey, if it doesn't work out, at least you'll have gone to a fancy party and eaten expensive food." Brielle laughed despite herself, always looking on the bright side. "One of us has to," Tasha said with a grin. "Now, are you going to put on those heels and go get your man, or what?" Brielle took a deep breath, decision made. "I need to know if it was real," she said, reaching for her shoes. As Tasha helped her with the final touches, Brielle tried to quiet the nervous flutter in her stomach. In a few hours, she would come face to face with Daniel Cross. Not the man she thought she knew, but the man he really was. And she would finally learn if the connection they'd shared was genuine or just another powerful man's game. The invitation sat on her dresser, the elegant script promising answers to questions she was finally ready to ask. Tonight would change everything one way or another. The Grand Meridian Hotel glittered with light as Brielle stepped out of her taxi. Towering glass doors opened into a lobby filled with people in evening wear, all headed toward the ballroom, where the Cross Innovations Foundation Gala was being held. Brielle clutched her small purse tightly, suddenly aware of how out of place she felt. Everywhere she looked, women wore designer dresses and jewelry that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Men in perfectly tailored tuxedos exchanged business cards and knowing laughs. "Invitation, please," said the attendant at the ballroom. Entrance. A young woman with an earpiece and tablet. Brielle handed over the cream-colored card Daniel had sent her. The attendant scanned it and looked up with a slightly surprised expression. "Miss Carter, you're Mr. Cross's personal guest," she said, her tone shifting to one of deference. "Please, follow me. Personal guest." Brielle followed the attendant through the crowded ballroom, aware of curious glances from other guests. The room was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements, and a small orchestra played softly in the corner. At the front, a stage had been set up with a podium bearing the Cross Innovations logo. The attendant led her to a reserved table near the front. "Mr. Cross asked that you be seated here. He'll be making his entrance soon for the presentation." "Thank ye." "You," Brielle said, taking a seat and feeling increasingly self-conscious. A waiter immediately appeared with champagne. "Compliments of Mr. Cross," he said with a practiced smile. Brielle accepted the glass but didn't drink. Her stomach was too knotted with tension to handle alcohol. She scanned the room, searching for any sign of Daniel. Instead, she spotted a striking woman in a red dress approaching her table. The woman moved with purpose, her gaze fixed on Brielle with an intensity that made her uneasy. "You must be Brielle Carter," the woman said, extending a manicured hand. "Victoria Winters, PR Director for Cross Innovations. I don't believe we've had the pleasure." Brielle shook her hand, noting the coolness in Victoria's smile. "Nice to meet you." Victoria took the seat beside her without waiting for an invitation. "I must say, you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" Brielle asked, forcing herself to meet the woman's calculating gaze. "Someone more familiar with this world," Victoria said, gesturing around the ballroom. "Daniel mentioned you're a teacher." The way she said teacher made it sound like a quaint hobby rather than a profession. "Kindergarten," Brielle confirmed. "Going on 6 years now." Victoria nodded as if confirming something to herself. "How refreshing. And how exactly did you and Daniel meet? He's been rather vague about the details." Before Brielle could answer, a murmur went through the crowd. Victoria checked her watch and stood. "Excuse me, that's my cue. Daniel should be making his entrance any minute now. We have quite the presentation planned." As Victoria walked away, Brielle felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find a familiar face, Sam, Daniel's supposed roommate. "Brielle? I'm Sam Chen. We haven't officially met, but—" "You're Daniel's roommate," Brielle said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Sam winced. "Yeah, about that. I swear it wasn't my idea to pretend. Daniel just wanted a chance to be normal for once." "Is he here?" Brielle asked, looking around. Sam's expression shifted, concern replacing his friendly smile. "That's just it. He's supposed to be giving the opening speech in 5 minutes, but no one can find him. His office is empty, his apartment too. He's not answering his phone." Brielle felt a chill. "What do you mean no one can find him?" "I mean he's gone," Sam said. "And the strange thing is, his assistant found this on his desk." Sam handed her a folded piece of paper. Brielle opened it to find a short handwritten note. "Some things matter more than money or power. I'm finally making the right choice." The handwriting was unmistakably Daniel's. "What does this mean?" Brielle asked, looking up at Sam. "I don't know," Sam admitted. "But there's a rumor going around that he's walking away from the company." The board members are in panic mode. Brielle's thoughts raced. Walking away after all he'd built? It didn't make sense. The lights dimmed slightly, and Victoria took the stage, tapping the microphone. Her practiced smile remained in place, but Brielle could see tension in her posture. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural Cross Innovations Foundation Gala. We're so pleased to have you all here tonight to support this important initiative." Victoria paused, scanning the room before continuing. "We had planned for Daniel Cross to share his vision for the foundation with you personally, but it seems our CEO has been unavoidably detained. In his absence, I'll be presenting the foundation's mission and goals." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Clearly, Daniel's absence was unexpected and unwelcome. As Victoria launched into a polished speech about technological access and educational opportunity, Brielle leaned towards Sam. "Has he ever done this before, just disappeared?" Sam shook his head. Never. Daniel's reliable to a fault. Something's wrong. Brielle thought about the note. The right choice, he'd written. What did that mean? Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out to find a text from an unknown number. Jazz Lounge, where it all began, please. Her heart jumped. It had to be Daniel. She looked up at Victoria on stage, then at the confused board members at the front table, then back at her phone. Without a second thought, she stood up. "Where are you going?" Sam whispered. "I think I know where he is," Brielle said quietly. "Cover for me?" Sam nodded. "Go, find him. This whole thing was for you anyway." "What do you mean?" Brielle asked, confused. "The foundation," Sam explained quickly. "It's to provide technology and resources to underfunded schools. He created it after you told him about your students who couldn't afford basic school supplies." Brielle felt a surge of emotion. All this grand event, this foundation, had been inspired by their conversations. "I'll find him," she promised, then slipped away from the table and headed for the exit. The Blue Note Jazz Lounge was quiet on a Thursday night. Only a few tables were occupied, and a lone saxophone player performed on the small stage. Brielle entered, still in her emerald gown, drawing curious glances from the casual patrons. And there he was. At the same table where they'd first met, Daniel sat alone, a glass of whiskey in front of him. He'd removed his bow tie, and his white dress shirt was open at the collar. He looked up as she approached, his eyes lighting up with hope and uncertainty. "You came," he said softly. "You left your own gala," she replied, taking the seat across from him. "That seems a little dramatic, even for a CEO." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I couldn't do it. Stand up there and give that speech about authenticity and purpose when the most authentic thing in my life was slipping away." Brielle felt her resolve weakening at the raw emotion in his voice, but she steeled herself. "You lied to me, Daniel." "I know," he admitted, "and I've regretted it every day since we met. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Brielle demanded. "What could you possibly be afraid of?" Daniel took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I was engaged to a woman named Vanessa. She was beautiful, connected, perfect for a rising tech CEO, or so I thought. Brielle waited, sensing there was more to the story. A week before our wedding, she gave an interview to a gossip magazine, said she was only with me for my money and connections, that in private I was boring, obsessed with work, not worth loving if I wasn't rich. His voice was steady, but Brielle could see the old pain in his eyes. It was humiliating. The whole tech industry was talking about it. "I'm sorry that happened," Brielle said, "but it doesn't excuse lying to me." "No, it doesn't," Daniel agreed, "but it's why I did it. After Vanessa, I retreated into work, built walls around myself. Then Tasha set us up and Sam pushed me to go, and I thought, what if I just didn't tell her? What if for once someone got to know me before they knew about my company or my money? You could have told me after a few dates," Brielle pointed out. "Once you saw I wasn't a gold digger." "I was going to," Daniel said. "The night of the gala, I had it all planned. I was going to explain everything, show you what I've been building, ask you to be my date." He laughed without humor. "Instead, you found out from a magazine cover, and then you sent me that invitation," Brielle said, "with no warning, no real explanation." "I panicked," Daniel admitted. "I just wanted a chance to explain in person, to show you that my world doesn't have to change what we have." Brielle shook her head. "But it does change things, Daniel. You're not just some guy with a consulting job, you're a CEO. You run a multi-million-dollar company. You have board meetings and galas and people like Victoria Winters managing your image." "None of that matters to me," Daniel insisted. "Not compared to what I feel for you." "Easy to say when you've had it all your life," Brielle countered. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. "I haven't had it all my life. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with parents who worked themselves to exhaustion to put food on the table. I got into MIT on scholarship and worked night shifts to pay for books. I built cross-innovations from nothing but an idea and maxed out credit cards." Brielle was taken aback by his intensity. "I know what it's like to have nothing," Daniel continued more gently. "And I know what it's like to have everything and still feel empty, until I met you." The saxophone player finished his set, and the lounge fell quiet. In the silence, Brielle could hear her own heartbeat, quick and uncertain. "The foundation," she said finally. "Sam said you created it because of me." Daniel nodded. "After you told me about Marcus and the other kids at your school, how the system fails them, how you stay late and buy supplies with your own money." His eyes held hers. "You inspired me to do something that actually matters, and now you've abandoned the launch," Brielle said. "Because of me. Because without you, none of it means anything," Daniel said simply. A waiter approached their table. "Excuse me, Mr. Cross. There's a rather insistent woman at the door asking for you. Says her name is Victoria Winters." Daniel sighed. "Tell her I'll be out in a minute." After the waiter left, Daniel turned back to Brielle. "I'm sorry. I need to deal with this. Victoria's probably convinced I've had a mental breakdown. Have you?" Brielle asked, only half joking. Daniel smiled, a real smile this time. "Maybe. But it's the sanest I've felt in years." He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. "Will you wait? Please. We're not finished." Brielle hesitated, then nodded. "I'll wait." As Daniel walked toward the entrance, Brielle watched him, confusion swirling in her heart. The man who had just bared his soul to her was the same Daniel she'd fallen for, thoughtful, passionate, real. But he was also a powerful CEO who moved in circles she couldn't imagine, who had responsibilities she couldn't fathom. Could they really bridge those worlds? Or was she setting herself up for heartbreak? Victoria Winters was fuming. Her perfectly planned gala was in shambles. Reporters were asking uncomfortable questions, and the board members were threatening emergency action. And now here was Daniel looking irritatingly unconcerned in a jazz club of all places. "Have you lost your mind?" she hissed when he emerged onto the sidewalk. "The biggest night of the company's year, and you disappear to listen to jazz?" "The foundation will be fine, Victoria," Daniel said calmly. "You gave the presentation, I assume." "That's not the point," Victoria snapped. "Richard is talking about an emergency board meeting. There are rumors you're having a breakdown or planning to sell the company." "I'm not having a breakdown," Daniel assured her, "and I'm not selling the company." Victoria studied his face. "Then what are you doing here? And don't tell me it's about that teacher. Please tell me you haven't thrown away years of work for a woman you barely know." "Her name is Brielle," Daniel said firmly, "and what I feel for her is not up for discussion." "Everything you do is up for discussion," Victoria insisted. "You're the face of Cross Innovations. Your choices affect thousands of employees, millions in shareholder value." "I'm aware of my responsibilities," Daniel said. "I'll be back at the gala in 20 minutes to give my speech. I just need to finish a conversation first." Victoria crossed her arms. "The kindergarten teacher. Really, Daniel? After everything that happened with Vanessa, you're jumping into another relationship that could damage the company." "Brielle is nothing like Vanessa," Daniel said, his voice hardening. "And I won't have you or the board dictating my personal life." "Fine," Victoria said after a tense moment. 20 minutes. Then you get back to the gala, give your speech, and fix this mess. Or I can't guarantee what the board might do." As Victoria stalked back to her waiting car, Daniel took a deep breath. The threat wasn't idle. The board had been looking for any sign of instability since the Vanessa debacle. His absence tonight had given them ammunition. He turned to go back, inside the jazz lounge, but his phone rang. It was Sam. "Daniel, where are you? The board called an emergency session in the hotel's conference room. They're talking about voting you out. You need to get back here now." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "Tell them I'm on my way." He went back into the lounge, where Brielle waited at their table. Her beauty in the dim light nearly took his breath away. "I have to go back," he said, the weight of obligation heavy in his voice. "The board is threatening to remove me as CEO." Brielle's eyes widened. "Because you left the gala?" "Partly," Daniel admitted, "but also because they think I'm unstable, making rash decisions, putting personal feelings above company interests." "Are you?" Brielle asked quietly. Daniel sat down across from her. "I don't know anymore. All I know is that before I met you, my life made perfect sense. Work was everything. Success was everything. Now," he trailed off, searching for words. "Now what?" Brielle prompted. "Now I'm questioning all of it," Daniel said. "What's the point?" of building something if you have no one to share it with? What's the point of success if it doesn't make the world better for people like Marcus? Brielle reached across the table and took his hand, the first time she'd reached for him since discovering his secret. "You should go back," she said softly. "You've built something important. Don't throw it away because of me." "Come with me," Daniel asked, squeezing her hand. "See my world, then decide if you want any part of it, any part of me." Brielle hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." The hotel conference room was tense when Daniel entered with Brielle at his side. 8 board members sat around a long table, with Victoria standing at the head. All eyes turned to them as they walked in. "Daniel," Richard Davenport said, his tone formal, "we were just discussing the company's leadership." "So I heard," Daniel replied coolly. "Seems a bit premature to be considering a change in management, because I stepped out of a party." "It's not about the party," another board member, Janet Chen, interjected. "It's about a pattern of behavior that suggests your priorities may have shifted." Daniel nodded to Brielle to take a seat along the wall, then moved to the head of the table directly opposite Victoria. "My priorities have always been clear," he said. "To build technology that makes a difference. To create a company. Culture based on innovation and integrity. And yes, to make money for everyone in this room." "Then why abandon the gala?" Victoria demanded. "Why leave investors and reporters wondering if you've lost interest in your own company?" Daniel took a deep breath. "Because tonight, I realized something important. Cross Innovations isn't just about quarterly reports and stock prices. It's about people, real people whose lives we can improve." He glanced at Brielle, drawing strength from her presence. "The foundation we launched tonight isn't a PR stunt," he continued. "It's the future of this company, using our success to give back to make technology accessible to those who need it most." "Noble sentiments," Richard said dryly, "but sentiment doesn't reassure shareholders." "No," Daniel agreed. "Results do, and my results speak for themselves. 6 straight quarters of growth, expansion into 3 new markets, patents pending on technology that will revolutionize how schools integrate learning platforms." The board members exchanged glances. Daniel pressed his advantage. "I founded this company. I've bled for it, sacrificed for it, and I'm not going to apologize for finally finding someone who reminds me why I started it in the first place." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "This is about her, isn't it?" "The teacher." All eyes turned to Brielle, who sat straight-backed against the wall, her face composed despite the scrutiny. "Partly," Daniel admitted. "Brielle reminded me that success means nothing if it doesn't serve a purpose beyond itself." "How touching," Victoria said sarcastically. "But while you've been having this epiphany, reporters are speculating about the company's stability, and our stock will likely take a hit when markets open tomorrow." "Then I'll fix it," Daniel said firmly. "I'll go back to the gala. I'll give my speech. I'll reassure everyone that Cross Innovations is stronger than ever, but I won't apologize for being human." Richard looked around at the other board members, measuring their reactions. After a moment, he nodded. "Very well, Daniel. Go salvage what you can of the evening, but this conversation isn't over." As the board members filed out, Victoria lingered. "I hope she's worth it," she said quietly, "because you're risking everything we've built." After Victoria left, Daniel turned to Brielle, who had risen from her seat. "I'm sorry you had to witness that," he said. "Don't be," Brielle replied. "It was enlightening." "Enlightening how?" Daniel asked, suddenly nervous about what she might have concluded. "I saw you," Brielle said simply. "The real you. Not just the man I had coffee with or the CEO on a magazine cover, but both parts together." Daniel moved closer to her. "And?" Brielle looked up at him, her eyes searching his. "And I need time, Daniel. This is all so much bigger than I imagined. Your life, your responsibilities. I need to figure out if there's room for me in it, and if I even want there to be." Daniel felt his heart sink, but he nodded. "I understand. Take all the time you need. You should get back to your gala," Brielle said, stepping away. "They're waiting for you." "What about you?" Daniel asked. "Will you come?" Brielle shook her head. "I think I've seen enough for one night. I need space to think." As she turned to leave, Daniel called after her. Brielle, for what it's worth, there will always be room for you in my life, in any way you want to be in it. She paused at the door, not turning around. Good night, Daniel. After she left, Daniel stood alone in the conference room, torn between running after her and returning to his obligations. Finally, duty won out. He straightened his bow tie, put on his CEO face, and headed back to the gala. But as he walked through the hotel corridors, his mind was filled not with thoughts of speeches or board members, but of a woman in an emerald dress walking away from him, possibly for good. Brielle sat in the back of a taxi, the city lights blurring through her tears. The night had been overwhelming, seeing Daniel in his element, witnessing the power he wielded, understanding the pressure he lived under daily. Part of her wanted to run as far from that world as possible. But another part couldn't forget the way he'd looked at her in the jazz lounge, like she was the only thing that mattered, or the way he'd stood up to his board, refusing to apologize for being human. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. How did it go? Did you talk to him? Brielle couldn't bring herself to respond. How could she explain the confusion in her heart, the fear that loving Daniel would mean losing herself in his world, the equal fear that walking away would be the biggest mistake of her life? As the taxi pulled up to her apartment building, Brielle made a decision. She needed to clear her head, to find perspective away from both Daniel and the memories they'd built in the city. Tomorrow she would call her mother and ask if she could stay with her for a few days. In the quiet of her childhood home, perhaps, she could finally sort through her feelings and decide once and for all if what she and Daniel had was worth fighting for, or if it had been doomed from the start. The taxi driver cleared his throat. "Miss, we're here." Brielle paid the fare and stepped out into the cool night air, her decision made. Whatever came next, it would be her choice. Not fear, not prejudice, not her past, but her choice alone. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Daniel. "Whatever you decide, know that meeting you changed me for the better. No regrets." Brielle read the message twice, then put her phone away without responding. Some answers couldn't be rushed, and some choices deserved the weight of careful consideration. She only hoped that when morning came, her heart and head would finally agree on which path to take. The familiar scent of her mother's cooking filled the small house as Brielle sat at the kitchen table, watching Evelyn chop vegetables for dinner. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of ignoring calls and messages from both Daniel and Tasha. 3 days of trying to make sense of her tangled emotions. "You've been quiet all afternoon," Evelyn observed, sliding the chopped carrots into a pot. "Still thinking about him?" Brielle nodded, twisting the napkin in her lap. "I can't seem to stop." "Then maybe that's your answer," Evelyn said simply. "It's not that easy, Mom," Brielle sighed. "His world is so different from mine. The money, the power, the pressure. You should have seen those people at the gala, looking at me like I was some exotic curiosity." Evelyn wiped her hands on a towel and sat across from her daughter. "Let me tell you something about different worlds. Your father and I came from different worlds too." Brielle looked up in surprise. Her mother rarely spoke about her father. "He grew up with money, private schools, summer homes," Evelyn continued. "I was a scholarship kid from the South Side. When we met in college, everyone said it wouldn't work. And they were right," Brielle said softly. "He left." Evelyn shook her head. "He left because he was weak and selfish, not because we came from different places. The world doesn't break relationships, Brielle, people do." The wisdom of her mother's words settled over Brielle like a warm blanket. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of losing myself in his world. Afraid of giving my heart to someone who hid the truth from me." "Those are 2 separate fears," Evelyn pointed out. "The first one, that's about you, not him. Do you really think you're the kind of woman who would lose herself for a man, any man?" Brielle thought about the question. Her whole life, she'd prided herself on her independence, her strength. "No," she said finally, "I'm not." "Then that leaves the second fear," Evelyn said. "Can you trust him again? Only you can answer that." Before Brielle could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen, expecting Daniel's number, but instead saw Sam's name. After a moment's hesitation, she answered, "Sam? What's wrong?" "Brielle, thank God." Sam's voice was tense. "Have you seen the news?" "No, I've been at my mom's. What's happened?" "It's Daniel. He called an emergency board meeting this morning. He's stepping down as CEO." Brielle felt her heart skip a beat. "What? Why would he do that?" "That's just it. No one knows," Sam said. "He made the announcement, appointed Janet Chen as interim CEO and walked out. He's not answering his phone and no one knows where he is." "This doesn't make sense," Brielle said, her mind racing. "He built that company from nothing. It's his life's work." "That's why I'm calling you," Sam explained. "The last thing he said before he left was that some things are more important than companies or money. Everyone assumes it has something to do with you." Evelyn was watching Brielle with concern, clearly able to tell something was wrong. "I have no idea where he is, Sam," Brielle said truthfully. "We haven't spoken since the gala." "If you hear from him, please let me know," Sam said. "I'm worried about him." After hanging up, Brielle explained the situation to her mother. "He's walking away from his company?" Evelyn asked, incredulous. "Because of you?" "I don't know," Brielle said, a sick feeling growing in her stomach. "But if he is, it's a mistake. He loves that company. He's built something important." Evelyn studied her daughter's face. "You love him, don't you?" The question hung in the air for a long moment before Brielle answered. "Yes," she admitted finally. "Despite everything I do." "Then go find him," Evelyn said firmly. "Before he does something both of you will regret." Brielle's mind raced as the train carried her back to the city. Where would Daniel go? Not his office, not with the media circus that must be surrounding. Cross Innovation's headquarters. Not his penthouse where board members and colleagues would look for him. Where would the real Daniel, her Daniel, go to escape? The answer came to her suddenly, so obvious she almost laughed. The Jazz Lounge. Their place, where it all began. As soon as the train pulled into the station, Brielle hailed a taxi and gave the driver the address for Blue Note. Rush hour traffic crawled through the city streets, each delay increasing her anxiety. What if she was wrong? What if he wasn't there? What if she was too late? When the taxi finally pulled up outside the lounge, Brielle thrust cash at the driver and hurried inside. The place was nearly empty in the late afternoon, just a few patrons at the bar, and, her heart leapt, a solitary figure at a corner table, nursing a drink. Daniel looked up as she approached, surprise and then warmth filling his eyes. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt, so different from the powerful CEO she'd seen at the gala. This was the Daniel she'd first met, the man she'd fallen for. "Brielle," he said softly, "I didn't expect to see you." "Sam called me," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "He told me what you did." "Daniel, why?" Daniel shrugged, his expression weary but somehow peaceful. "It was time for a change. But your company, everything you've built, is in good hands," he finished. "Janet Chen is brilliant. She'll take Cross Innovations in directions I never could." Brielle shook her head in disbelief. "You can't just walk away." "I'm not walking away completely," Daniel explained. "I'll still be on the board. I'll still be the majority shareholder. I just won't be running the day-to-day operations anymore." "But why?" Brielle pressed. Is this because of me?" Daniel was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Not exactly. It's because of what you helped me see." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "After Vanessa, I buried myself in work. I convinced myself that success and control were all that mattered. But these past few weeks, with you, reminded me there's more to life than board meetings and quarterly reports." "So what will you do now?" Brielle asked. A smile touched Daniel's lips. "Focus on the foundation. It's what I'm passionate about. Using technology to help kids like your students. And maybe," he hesitated, "maybe find out if a certain kindergarten teacher might give me a second chance." Brielle felt her heart beating faster. "Daniel, before you answer," he interrupted gently, "there's something I need to say. The day after the gala, I sent you a letter. Did you get it?" Brielle shook her head. "I left for my mum's house early the next morning. I haven't been home." Daniel nodded. then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "This was supposed to go with the letter. It's not what you think," he added quickly, seeing her alarmed expression. He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a small ballet slipper charm. Brielle gasped softly. "You remembered," she whispered. "Of course I did," Daniel said. "You told me you wanted to be a dancer, but your family couldn't afford lessons, that your mom saved for months to buy you proper shoes." He held out the box. "I remember everything you've told me, Brielle, because everything about you matters to me." Tears pricked at Brielle's eyes as she took the box with trembling fingers. The gesture was so thoughtful, so personal, not a flashy diamond or expensive watch, but something that showed he had truly listened to her. "Daniel, you didn't have to step down from your company to prove anything to me," she said. "I didn't do it for you," he replied. "I did it for me. Because the man I want to be, the man I think you could love, isn't defined by a corner office or a CEO title." Brielle looked at the necklace, then back at Daniel. "I was so angry when I found out you'd lied to me. Not because of the money, but because I thought everything between us had been built on deception." "Not everything," Daniel said earnestly. "The way I feel about you, that's always been real. The most real thing in my life." "I know that now," Brielle admitted. "Seeing you at the gala, the way you stood up to your board, I saw both sides of you. And I realized they're not separate people. You're just Daniel. My Daniel." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Does that mean you're willing to give us another chance?" Before Brielle could answer, the door to the lounge burst open. Victoria Winters strode in, looking as polished as ever in a tailored suit, her expression thunderous. "There you are," she said, marching toward their table. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The stock is down 12%. Investors are panicking. The media is having a field day with speculation." Daniel remained calm. "Hello, Victoria. I see you found me." "This isn't a joke, Daniel," Victoria snapped. "You've put years of work at risk with this impulsive stunt." Her eyes flicked to Brielle, then back to Daniel. "And for what? Some romantic notion of starting over?" "Victoria," Daniel said, his voice firm but not unkind, "my decision is made. Janet will make an excellent CEO. The company will be fine." "You're throwing away everything we built," Victoria insisted, her composure slipping to reveal genuine distress. "Everything you worked for." "No," Daniel said gently. "I'm choosing what matters most. The foundation will still launch. The technology will still help people, but I won't sacrifice my life to a boardroom anymore." Victoria's gaze shifted to Brielle, narrowing slightly. "And I suppose this is all for her? The kindergarten teacher, who's known you for what, a month?" Brielle tensed, ready to defend herself, but Daniel spoke first. "This is about balance, Victoria. Something I lost sight of years ago. Brielle helped me remember it, but this decision is mine." Victoria looked between them, seeming to measure something. In her mind, finally her shoulders dropped slightly. "The board wants to meet with you tomorrow," she said, professional mask back in place, "to discuss transition plans and a formal announcement." "I'll be there," Daniel promised. Victoria nodded curtly, then turned to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back at Brielle. "He's giving up a lot," she said, her tone unreadable. "I hope you're worth it." After Victoria left, an uncomfortable silence hung between Brielle and Daniel. "Is she right?" Brielle asked finally. "Are you giving up too much?" Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm not giving up anything that truly matters. I'll still guide the company's vision. I'll still work with the foundation. The only difference is I'll have time for a real life too." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "A life I hope might include you." Brielle looked into his eyes, searching for any trace of doubt or regret. She found none. "I need you to know something," she said slowly. "If we do this, if we try again, it has to be as equals. I won't be the woman behind the great man, lost in your shadow." "I wouldn't want that," Daniel said sincerely. "Your passion, your independence, they're part of why I fell for you." "And no more lies," Brielle added. "No matter how small, no matter the reason." "Complete honesty," Daniel agreed. "About everything." Brielle took a deep breath. "Then yes, I'm willing to give us another chance. The joy that spread across Daniel's face made her heart swell. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Thank you," he said simply. As they sat in the warm glow of second chances, the saxophone player took the stage and began to play. The soft, soulful notes of summertime filled the air, the same song that had played the night they first met. "Dance with me?" Daniel asked, standing and extending his hand. Brielle smiled and took it, allowing him to lead her to the small space near the stage. As they swayed together to the music, her head resting against his chest, Brielle felt the last of her doubts melting away. This wouldn't be easy. They came from different worlds with different challenges. But maybe her mother was right. The world doesn't break relationships. People do. And they were both committed to building something real, something lasting. "I love you," Daniel whispered against her hair. "I think I've loved you since that first night." Brielle looked up at him, at the vulnerability and hope in his eyes, and felt her heart open fully. "I love you too," she said. "Both sides of you, all of you." As they danced in the soft light of the jazz lounge, the future stretched before them, uncertain but full of promise. A path they would walk together as equals, with eyes wide open. 2 months later, Brielle stood nervously backstage at the Cross Innovations Foundation's first major event. The auditorium of her school was filled with press, company representatives, and most importantly, her students and their families. "You ready for this?" Daniel asked, squeezing her hand. He looked handsome in a simple suit, relaxed in a way he never had as CEO. "As I'll ever be," Brielle replied. "Public speaking isn't exactly my strong suit. You face 25 5-year-olds every day," Daniel reminded her with a smile. "This crowd is nothing compared to that." The principal finished her introduction, and applause filled the auditorium. Brielle took a deep breath and walked onto the stage with Daniel. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steadier than she expected. "Today marks the beginning of something special for our school and for schools across the city. The Cross Innovations Foundation is providing not just technology, but opportunity." As she spoke about the new computer lab, the tablets for every student, and the after-school coding program, Brielle felt a surge of pride. This was what mattered, making a difference in children's lives, and standing beside her was a man who understood that, who shared her vision. After the presentation, as they watched children excitedly exploring their new tablets, Sam approached them. "The board approved the expansion to 5 more schools next quarter," he told Daniel. "Janet's fully behind it." "That's great news," Daniel said, his arm around Brielle's waist. "How are things at headquarters?" "Different," Sam admitted, "but good different. Janet's running a tight ship. Stock's almost back to pre-announcement levels." He glanced at Brielle. "And the press has finally stopped running stories about the CEO who gave up his empire for love." Brielle groaned. "Will they ever let that go? You didn't give up your empire, you just restructured your priorities." "I like that," Daniel laughed. "I'm going to use that in interviews from now on." As Sam walked away to help a group of children, with their tablets, Brielle turned to Daniel. "Any regrets?" she asked quietly. "About stepping down?" Daniel looked around at the children's excited faces, then back at Brielle. "Not one," he said honestly. "I've never been happier, or more certain about anything." Brielle studied his face, seeing the truth in his eyes. The past 2 months hadn't been without challenges. Merging their different worlds had required patience and compromise. Her students had been awestruck when they discovered Mr. Daniel was the tablet man from TV. His business associates still sometimes looked surprised when she spoke up in foundation meetings, but day by day, they were building something beautiful together, something real. "Ms. Carter." 6-year-old Marcus called, running up to them with his tablet. "Look what I made." Brielle knelt down to see the simple coding project on his screen. "That's amazing, Marcus. You're a natural." "Mr. Daniel helped me," Marcus said, beaming up at Daniel. "He said I could be an engineer someday if I want." "You absolutely could," Daniel agreed, crouching beside Brielle. "You've got a great teacher to help you get there." As Marcus ran back to his friends, Daniel took Brielle's hand and helped her to her feet. "Speaking of the future," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "I've been thinking about ours." Brielle's heart quickened. "Oh?" "I know it's only been a few months," Daniel continued, "but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're it for me, Brielle. You're the one I want to build a life with. Daniel, Brielle began, but he shook his head. I'm not proposing. Not yet. That can wait until you're ready. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is something else. Brielle opened the envelope to find a deed inside. Her eyes widened as she read the address. A beautiful old building just a few blocks from her school. What is this? She asked, confused. Your dance studio, Daniel said softly. If you want it, Brielle stared at him in shock. My what? You told me you wanted to be a dancer when you were little, Daniel explained. That dream got put on hold, but it doesn't have to stay that way. The building needs renovation, but it has good bones. It could be a place where kids like you once were can learn to dance, regardless of whether their families can afford lessons. Tears welled in Brielle's eyes. Daniel, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he assured her. It's just an option. Something to think about. The deed is in your name, no strings attached. Whatever you decide to do with it, whether it becomes a dance studio or something else entirely, it's your choice. Brielle looked at the deed, then back at the man standing before her, a man who remembered her childhood dreams and believed in them enough to make them possible. A man who had rearranged his entire life to make room for what truly mattered. I love you, she said, wrapping her arms around his neck. And I think a dance studio for underprivileged kids is the perfect next project for us. Daniel's smile lit up his face. Us. I like the sound of that. As they walked back into the crowd of excited children and parents, Brielle thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. A blind date, a magazine cover, a painful revelation, and ultimately a choice to believe in something real. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. There were no princes or glass slippers, just two people who chose each other, complications and all. A CEO who stepped back to see what really mattered, a teacher who opened her heart despite her fears. And a future they would build together, one day at a time, with eyes wide open and hearts fully engaged. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that made it better than any fairy tale could ever be.